Moon Knight Episode 4 just completely changed the game, and Sean and I are going to break it down right now.
You look scared.
No.
Well, you should be.
What's up, guys? It's Law with CinemaBlend, and today I'm here with our managing editor, Sean O'Connell, because I need some backup breaking down Episode 4. Sean, how you feeling about Moon Knight so far?
Confused, Law. I mean, the train has gone off the rails, but that's exciting because it means that the next two episodes of Moon Knight can go in any different direction, and that's why we're going to need you guys to hit subscribe and turn on your notifications. Following the conclusion of this episode, really, things are about to get crazy, and we're going to break down all of the different exciting stuff that has happened in Episode 4 and what it might mean for 5 and 6.
Let's find out.
Okay, so now Episode 4 took us through kind of a roller coaster of plot details, but we ended in a mental asylum, and now I'm wondering, is anything that we've seen all of this series even real? Sean, what can you tell us about where we're at the end of this episode?
It does feel like a rug pull, doesn't it? Because, we just watched 3.5 episodes of, as you lovingly refer to it, the Mark and Steven show, and all these different expeditions that they went on. And now all of a sudden we're led to believe that this might be existing in Mark's brain and his psyche, and that he's being treated by Ethan Hawke, who's a doctor. However, we got to pick a side. We have to decide which one's real and which one isn't. Is the institution real, or is everything that we watched for the previous 3 episodes real? And I personally believe, and you can tell me if you disagree, Law, that the institution is imaginary, that it's something that's being done to Mark to make him believe that he is part of that. There's also a comic book plot line that sort of sets this up, where at one point Khonshu teamed up with Amit to sort of convince Mark that he was in an institute. And I don't think Khonshu would do that at this stage of the show right now, because Khonshu basically said to Steven, hey, tell Mark he's got to break me out of this prison that I'm going to be put into by the other gods. But I think that there's something else at play, and we can discuss that a little bit later in the video.
I definitely love that you brought up the comic precedent, because that was something that stood out to me right away, was that it looked just like Jeff Lemire's run, which is my favorite Moon Knight run, actually. And it almost felt like the pages were taken straight from that series. However, like you said, it was Khonshu in charge of that kind of mental purgatory, and now we're left to assume at least, that it's Ethan Hawke doing it, right? Or it's Arthur Harrow, and with him being that Amit avatar in this kind of vision. And speaking about that institution scene, we definitely need to get into all those Easter eggs, because there's a lot to unpack there.
How is this possible? I don't know.
I'm wondering, Sean, what do you think is relevant in this scene to pay attention to? Because there's a lot in the background.
So much in the background. And I'm going to jump immediately to the third sarcophagus that was kind of shaking but didn't open. So Mark is running around trying to figure out where he is, what's going on inside of this hospital. He encounters one sarcophagus, opens it up, and realizes that it's the body of Steven. Now, the two of them realize it's very strange that they can see each other, and that's another indication that this is something really strange that's going on inside the mind of our hero. They are then going down the hallway, and they look into another room where a third sarcophagus is shaking but doesn't open. And we've been saying on this analysis series that there are probably at least 3 voices going on in Mark's head. I believe that was a third one. In fact, like you guys, I'm sure you were waiting for that to open so that we could potentially meet, I think, Jake Lockley, who has been the traditional third voice or personality inside of Mark. But it didn't open, and instead we got a big reveal that we're going to discuss in a minute. But there's a lot of other visual cues that speak to things that we have seen over the course of the first few episodes. And the way that the institution scene wants you to believe that maybe we watched them play out over the course of 3 episodes because Mark sees them during his therapy sessions. Instead, I think that Ethan Hawke's character is pulling things that Mark has lived through, like the village with the castle, or the different gods that are represented through statues and monuments around the doctor's office. I think that he's pulling from experiences that Mark actually endured or lived through and using them to sort of build this facade of the Institute going around. But I'm sure that they will clarify that, because you know that the way this episode ends with a very strange reveal. And, you know, I was scratching my head at who that is who opens the door and surprises the two of them. You have some intel on this.
we have an educated guess is what we have.
Okay.
Is in Egyptian mythology, there is a goddess of fertility and life. Her name is Taweret, and she's usually depicted as a hippopotamus, anthropomorphic hippopotamus with, let me get this right, a hippo head, lion paws, and a croc hind, which is interesting because Amit, the god, is depicted with kind of the reverse features where Amit is a croc head, lion paws, and a hippo hind. So it does feel like, if that's correct, it feels like it's playing to that like parallel of one god versus the other, you know, good versus evil. But I do think it's worth noting that Taweret is a god of fertility and life, and a god that ancient Egyptians would pray to for, like, you know, childbirth. It makes me wonder, because we've seen it before in the comics, Moon Knight has a child altar as well. And I wonder how many different personalities or sarcophagi that we're not seeing in that institution that just weren't represented, right? Can we handle more than 3 people? I don't know, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see why this hippo lady showed up, because she seems nice. If I'm being honest, she seems like she's
she
here
does
to
seem
help.
really nice. Yeah, but I don't know if I'm ready for Kid Moon Knight at this point.
No.
That might be. There's been some strange twists over the course of this show through 4 episodes. Kid Moon Knight might be a little bit far over the line.
It's a lot.
I can't quite figure out the relevance of the bingo game. I know that means something, but I can't quite think what it is. It was cool that we saw Layla and her making a big deal about the fact that they won a bingo game, but I don't know yet what that means, but I guarantee, Law, that it means something.
There's something about, and I've said this before in our analysis series, where like I don't trust Layla for some reason. I'm just expecting her to do something nefarious, and when she takes the win in that bingo game and says like, "Oh, we won," or "I won," you know, I don't know if that was like a hint towards it, kind of like that relationship kind of devolving in that way, or I'm just reading into it, which I think is what the filmmakers want us to do with this episode, is just like read way far into this stuff, right?
That's what we do.
Yeah, that's what we do. I do wonder who's in that sarcophagus, just like you. You know, the most obvious answer seems like Jake Lockley, but could it just be the spirit of Khonshu, or is Moon Knight himself a separate entity inside of Mark's head, which is something that we haven't seen yet, but maybe this is where the splinters happen. Definitely something worth talking about, I think, but well, and we also have to ask ourselves that if the Institute is fake, if it's being set up in Mark's mind, or to make Mark believe that because he and Steven both remember the fact that they got shot before they woke up in this scenario. And so if this is a fictional reality that is being put on Mark, then that means that Harrow is a lot more powerful than we realize, that he has the ability through a god that's potentially backing him, that we've been told is Amit, can do other things that we haven't seen him potentially do up to this point, because that's a pretty massive bit of psychedelia to put somebody into an artificial reality. You're right. His power seems pretty grandiose if he's able to pull something like that off. So let's break down what we think is going on with Arthur Harrow.
He still hasn't told you the truth?
Well, you're obviously dying to.
Now, there are a ton of fan theories about who Dr. Arthur Harrow is, and we have some guesses ourselves, but Sean, you've done some research, you read those fan theories. What do you think? What do you think he's up to?
Well, I want to debunk the one right off the bat that he's Dr. Doom. And that was really intriguing, especially because of the clues that we saw in episode 1 that hinted at the presence of Doom's castle and Latveria, which is the realm that Doom lords over in the comic books. But nothing else from Harrow's background hinted at the fact that they were building towards Dr. Doom. So I'm kind of dismissing that right off the bat. That feels like Mephisto all over again, where everybody watched WandaVision from episode to episode, trying to figure out what it is. Instead, there are a lot of clues so far that are pointing to another Egyptian god, not Amit, who might be driving Harrow forward, and that's Anubis. And Anubis is represented by a jackal, who we know that there was a jackal that attacked Steven in episode 1 through the museum. And Anubis, from what we've been able to read so far, judges the hearts of individuals using a scale of balance, essentially, to judge them against the weight of their soul. And if the soul is heavier than a feather, then they're deemed not worthy of moving forward. And this is very similar to what we've seen Arthur Harrow do. there are a ton of clues to the existence of Anubis once you sort of go down that rabbit hole and steer away from Doctor Doom. But the weird part is, because Marvel doesn't necessarily want to give a definitive answer, they do still leave a couple of really interesting Doom breadcrumbs. So I think that this warrants a larger video, Law, honestly. There's a lot more reading I want to do. It's crazy how Moon Knight needs homework, right? But there's really interesting things that you can read up on with Egyptian culture and heritage and the history of the Egyptian people and the gods. And so I kind of want to go back over the first 4 episodes, and we're going to do another video here on our YouTube channel that digs deeper into Anubis and Doom and Harrow. So make sure you look for that when we post it.
Egyptian gods walk among us.
So there's obviously a lot of crazy things happening around this episode, but inside of the actual tomb, there was a lot that went down when it came to character development and, Mark got shot in there, and that led us to the institution in the first place. We learn about Layla's origin story and how Mark was involved, and we did discuss before that was going to be a big issue. Sean, what were some of the more interesting moments that happened in the kind of the action adventure part of this episode for you?
Well, we saw mummies, Law, like actual mummies that had this really disturbing sound they made that I never want to hear in my life. If I'm in some sort of dark room and that rattlesnake sort of, it just terrified me as they were sort of moving around. And the way they shot it, the way that it was shot in the dark, and Mark and Steven were both kind of hiding behind different areas, and Layla was kind of hiding behind different areas, so that we didn't quite see the creatures. I was like, what are these things? And then you finally get a good look at what they are, and they are traditional mummies. It's interesting that you brought up, the Moon Knight, the traditional Moon Knight origin story. A lot of Marvel heroes have that kind of set up with their origin story. They failed to save somebody. They carry that guilt around with them. And this goes a little bit back to our first segment where we're discussing whether all of this is real or not. Like, these are important points to answer Moon Knight's origin, to answer Layla's origin and the connections with her father, and, Steven succeeding in finding the amulet that's buried inside of who turns out to be Alexander the Great. Like, if none of that is real, then you're telling us this, or you're answering all these really important questions that you've raised over the course of your analysis series, and giving us all these explanations just to wipe them off the board. And, you and I were discussing before they got into the video about the importance of Alexander the Great. That has to be something big. I don't quite know yet what it is, but, you don't name drop somebody like that unless it's going to become a relevant point moving forward.
I'd be thrilled. I shit myself, but I'd be thrilled.
If for some reason we're wrong and the institution ends up being our reality, then dang, did they fumble the ball. But I don't think that's gonna happen in the next 2 episodes. I do worry though, like with the Disney Plus series or Marvel shows in the past, the last 2 episodes have to answer a lot of questions generally.
If it's something like Loki or WandaVision, they, in my opinion, have delivered fantastic finales. And then if it's something like Falcon and Winter Soldier, they kind of stumble to the finish line. And we don't know yet what to expect from Disney Plus and Marvel when it comes to these multi-episode shows. And so I like to believe that Moon Knight knows how many episodes it needs in order to reach its conclusion. As we kind of said at the beginning of this video, with the way that 4 ended, 5 and 6 can go anywhere, and I'd be, along for the ride. But, outside of a few lingering aspects, I think we're ready to bring this plane down for a landing.
I have to say, I feel like I've been waiting for this my whole life.
Thank you guys so much for watching our analysis of episode 4 of Moon Knight. We'll be back next week for episode 5, so make sure that you're subscribed and have your notifications turned on. And let us know what you think. We definitely want to hear from you in the comments. Give us your fan theories and what you expect out of the series. And thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.